Hello! Ah, the mighty iPad, Apple's magical window to a land of extreme profits, and something I didn't really have any particular use for until I discovered you can play obscure German board games on them, and then it became more important to me than my liver. Although these days I pretty much just obsessively play Ascension and magnetic billiards. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is these things are bloody expensive and you need to keep them safe. Partially because, of course, these things go for a lot second-hand, so if you can keep all the scratches and nasties off it, then that's marvellous. Obviously a screen protector is the first thing. I literally bought mine in Poundland and seems to work fine, although they're a pain in the bum to put on. Well, of course they are. Screen protectors are always a pain in the bum to put on, but this has a big screen. But we need something to protect the back from scratches. Look, I don't want anything happening to my lovely inscription. What would I do without it? You can buy something from Apple called a smart cover, which is of course anything but. It's like a £30 bit of folding polyurethane, though I think there's an even more expensive leather version, which basically has edges that fray after a short time, doesn't cover the back at all, and just sticks on by magnets, so if you put it in a bag there's a fairly high chance that you're going to get it out of your bag, discover it's come off and the screen is scratched. Yes, that has happened to several people I know. So, what other options do you have? Well, for the iPad 1, I got hold of a very cheap, nice case cover thing from eBay, which was about £5 delivered, and did the job very well. So I thought, hey, I'll do the same again for this differently shaped iPad 3, new iPad, Billy's Magic iPad, whatever they're calling it. So I spent £6 on eBay and got one of these. Now this looks very, very similar, and is in fact made out of the same stuff as Apple's smart cover, but it has a back, look, to keep it on properly and protect the back. So all was well and wonderful, I thought, until I discovered something slightly irritating. See, you fold all this in, and that's all wonderful and marvellous. And look, it sticks on with the magnets and it automatically turns on and off, or at least it would do if I hadn't powered it off completely. And all that kind of thing. And look, all the ports are open so you can still use... Hang on. That's right. When you fold it out so that you can use it, Mr. Gravity comes along and pulls it out of the proper place. And look, now none of the ports look right, nothing fits, and it's bloody annoying. And you know what? If you spent a fortune on one of these, maybe you should spend a little more and get something decent to protect it. So, let's get rid of this. Because let's face it, all it's good for is making an amusing noise as it falls into the dustbin. That wasn't a dustbin. That was just the floor, in case you were wondering. And here's something from our new best friends at Snuggug. Sounds like something Popeye would say, doesn't it? Snuggug. Yes, it's basically a nicer thing. Made out of leather. Lots of white stitching. For fans of white stitching actually would really love this. And using the magic of Velcro and various other substances, you stick it in here like this, and you stick that on there like that, and look what happens. That's all safe now, isn't it? Marvellous. You can fold this around, it goes up there and you can use it like a stand, and all the ports are accessible and all that sort of stuff. And it feels really nice and solid, and it protects it really brilliantly, and it even has the magnet thing for the automatic on and off. In fact, I only have 2 complaints with this. The first complaint is that it's got the company name embossed on the front, which is slightly irritating, but we'll let them off. And the other complaint is they've also got it on the back with their sort of address where you get it from. And oh, come on, don't stick your name all over it. It gets a bit weird by the time you've seen it the 3rd time. And London, Miami, Tokyo, Peckham, and all that stuff. Well, they're keen on promoting themselves, but it's a very, very nice case, and it costs £30 from Amazon, which is pretty much exactly the same price as Apple's ridiculous not quite working smart cover. So if you're going to be spending £30 on a cover, I probably would recommend this one above the other. And here's my favourite bit, look. You can use it to join a skiffle band. I think that's how skiffle bands sound, I can't remember. Anyway, here's another way you can protect your iPad. Give it to a friend and never ask for it back. But here's a far better way. Let's remove it from here and show you. Say you don't need the front of it protected quite as much because you're just using it around the house or juggling with it or whatever. You can get one of these silicone covers that just fits around it and, you know, protects the back and is all rubbery and that. And do you know what? They sell them in Poundland. Here's one. You see how it looks wet? It's not wet. It's always like that. You see how it looks like it's full of bits of white dust and dirt? It's not. That's just how it is. It's sort of got very loose edges, and it's slightly stickier than you would want something made of silicone to be, and it just feels like somebody's got an iPad, covered it in liquid latex, and then peeled it off a few hours later. Do I really want this on here? Oh well, let's put it on anyway. I think it goes around that way. And isn't going to fit very tightly, I think, as there's quite a lot of give, to say the least. There we are. Well, it protects the back and makes it look like it's permanently had somebody wipe their nose across it. What is that? Some sort of flaw in the process they've used to make it, presumably. Ooh, I hope so anyway, because if they actually have got magic snails in the factory, it's all a bit strange. Yeah, that's £1. And it does the job, I suppose. But it looks horrible and makes you wish you were dead every time you touch your bloody iPad. Fortunately, our friends at Snugog, yes, they've made their logo red because they've only put it on this one once, have produced something a lot better. You know, by doing it properly and not ludicrously cheaply. Fits in there like that, strangely enough, and has a much better back for starters. It will actually absorb some shock, but more to the point, it will stay on it and not go all weird. It doesn't feel horrible in your hands, and it's basically like about 10 times better than that. The problem is it costs 20 times as much as that. These are 20 quid on Amazon, and these of course are £1 in Poundland. And whilst I wouldn't recommend those, I don't really know if this is worth 20 quid when you can spend an extra £10 and get the nice leather thing. Unless you have a very specific use for something like this, I would stick with the other. Anyway, these physical protection devices are far too simple. How about something that makes telling the time complicated? I do like alternative watches, you know, the ones you strap on your wrist that have groovy flashing lights and look cool and tell the time in some bizarre and arcane manner that nobody else understands. I did review one ages ago, a cheapy one, but today we have 3 non-cheapy ones from Tokyo Flash, which is a website that sells such things. I believe all the watches are made by a company called Kasai, as the box says. They come in these sort of semi-generic boxes. These are a pretty one here, and a slightly more understated black one here. You know, I really enjoy the films of Tim Burton. Tim Burton's films have been terrible recently. Anyway, let's look at some watches, shall we? First up, we've got... what's this one called again? Satellite, that's it. It's sort of a very slightly cheapy, plasticky, rubbery watch strap thing going on, which isn't great. But it's an intriguing triple dial design. What happens when we press the button? It lights up, there's a surprise. But you can also see certain segments are flashing. It works like this. Here's your hours, so it's currently 3. Here's your minutes, we've gone past 35, and extra minutes, another 3. So it is 3 o'clock, 35 minutes, and another 3 minutes. It's 3:38, everybody! Hooray! In the morning. No, not really, obviously. It would be dark. Although maybe I'm just using lights and staying up all night to mess with your head. No, I'm not. So yeah, that's quite an interesting way of telling the time and confusing people, and you get used to it relatively quickly. Sits on your wrist quite nicely, except it's a little bit tall, and something I strongly dislike. It have these sort of extra bits coming up here. I presume that's to protect the screen, but somehow makes it feel more bulky. And look, that's where you plug it into a USB to charge the internal battery. That bit's nice. The big problem I have with this is it does cost £63. And I'm going to be honest, for the cheapy strap on that, it doesn't really feel like it's worth it, although it is quite a pretty thing on your wrist. But don't worry, because the next watch looks like something out of Tron. Oh man, Tron Legacy to be exact. I was so excited when I saw this. Look at this, right? Strap it on your wrist with the slightly confusing strap system. And my god, it took me ages to cut this strap down to the right size because it's like the rubbery plastic thing again. But look, it's like you're in a sci-fi film, specifically Tron Legacy. Press this button Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Glowing things. Then you realise you have to tell the bloody time on it. Right, in theory, this works like the other one. The inner ring is the hours, the outer ring is the minutes, to the nearest 5, and then this is sort of the extra minutes. But you have to look at where it's not lighting up. Can you see that the 3 is a tiny bit dimmer? Can you see that the 35 there is a tiny bit dimmer? Can you see that the minutes are all the way across? Yes, it's 3:39. You may have noticed the small problem here, that while this looks cool, and indeed turn it on in the dark, and you can pretend you're the big Lebowski, no wait, the small Lebowski, the fact remains, it's almost completely useless, because it takes you bloody ages to work out where the slightly dimmer areas are. It's really quite rubbish, and I just spat on it by accident. Oh dear, I was so disappointed with this. It's one of my most disappointing sci-fi things ever, and I have seen both the Matrix sequels. Also, it's incredibly uncomfortable because this whole thing here is a big solid lump of plastic, completely rigid, so it just sort of sticks around your wrist and hurts unless you have very thin wrists like a silly little girl. And if you're a silly little girl, why do you want things like Tron Legacy that you can't read? No. This is just no good, and again, costs £89. The official name of it is 7, incidentally. I don't know why that is. Now I've got to work out how to get the strap off. There we go. Marvellous. Yeah, so not greatly impressed by that. Fortunately, they bring up the rear a bit with the final watch on offer. On air. 41, it says. Notice how the 41 is positioned at 3 o'clock. That is because it is 3:41. Hey, clever, eh? Now this is a much nicer metal strap and does actually clip on the arm quite easily and freshly. It's a bit smaller than the others, unlike this one, which is like a big chunk of nastiness. It's still, quite a tall thing, but not worryingly so. And yeah, that's how it works. Literally, this shows the number which goes around where the hours are. Isn't that clever? Let me show you something, actually. This also has a touch screen with 4 sort of segments, up, down, left, right. And the way you... oh dear, I've forgotten how to turn it already. That's it. That's the one that activates the backlight. It's gone blue and made it impossible to see on the camera, so that's useful. I've now got to remember how you unlock it. I believe you... here we are. You swish, press there, move across. We are now unlocked. Hold that for 3 seconds. There we are. That shows you AM or PM. It's obviously PM at the moment. But this will allow me to fast forward in time and show you what this looks like at not quite the perfect time of 3 o'clock. See how it goes around there? So for instance, if it was 7:42, it would look, do it one more, like that. 42 across the side there. Now it's 9. Oh, hang on. That wasn't 7, that was 8. Oh dear. That's 7. That's 6. I've forgotten how to tell the time already. But I do know that if you keep doing this, it amuses me. Look at that. Now, I felt that was worth doing because, of course, 3 is absolutely the perfect time where it's always going to look nice. If we wind it back to, say, 11 o'clock here, not quite as easy to read immediately as the others, but again, it only takes a second and is, in fact, numbers that you understand with your brain. Let's put that back to the right time. There we are. Hold that for 3 seconds. Then you can change the seconds, obviously. And then it does this. I'm not entirely sure what this is, some sort of weird animation setting, but it does amuse me. Beep. There we are. All back to normal. And so yeah, this is far nicer than the others. You can actually read the time a lot easier. And overall, this is by far my favourite and gets a pat on the head. Problem is, extremely expensive. It's £130. It's a nice thing, but crikey oh blimey. I think that's sort of fashionista prices. But if you want such a thing, what else are you going to do? Make your own out of your own phlegm? It's not going to happen. If it does, make a video.